back to the show. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty, and today we are doing another follow up episode. And for those of you that don't know, follow up episodes are just shorter versions of the full episode where we cover topics. I keep saying we, but it's just me. Where I cover topics that were covered previously, but maybe adding some new thought or some new idea or some kind of update to something that maybe wasn't covered when the episode was discussed. So this episode, and all follow up episodes are relatively shorter, and today's follow up is going to be on solo endeavors. So, this is actually the very first episode that I did of this podcast, Solo Endeavors, and I think it's going to be, great kind of just like as I've reflected on this. The topic for next week is going to be traveling, and as I kind of think about this idea of traveling and, like the idea of solo endeavors, I've realized a lot of times that I kind of have to, travel by myself or kind of do these things by myself in order to really explore and see the things that I want to see, because not everyone is in the same place. Not everyone is kind of as adventurous or is able to adventure as much as I'd like to. So I have to do it for myself. And I think that that's something that I thought about as I went into this idea of thinking about traveling and that entire topic. So that's going to be what this follow up is going to be about. And I guess like just to start this off, there are so many things that are happening right now that it kind of just blows my mind. It's been kind of weird. I don't know if anyone else has kind of felt this, but there's just been something that seems just off, for like the past like week or so. It's something that just seems in the air. It just seems like something is off. And as I've reflected over the past week and like looked at shit that's happened like over the past week, it's very clear that, like maybe this is resonating through a lot of different avenues and a lot of different people right now. So first news is those of you that may be on the East Coast, you've probably heard about this on the news, and it's probably being spread a lot more than it is here in California. But there's a man on the loose. His name is Peter Manfredonia. I At first when I saw that name, and I swore it was a fake name, I was like, that's definitely a fake name, but that's his real name, Peter Manfredonia. And he's a 23-year-old senior from University of Connecticut. Well, he went to University of Connecticut, and he has there's been a manhunt for him recently because of his involvement in two deaths. Well, he killed two people, and apparently it started off with him looking for his ex-girlfriend. And I'm not sure exactly why he was looking for her or any reason like that, but the neighbor, I believe, as if I read the article correctly, the neighbor of the ex-girlfriend, was his first victim, and his name was Ted Demers. He was 62 years old, and he was with his wife at the time, who I guess they had confronted. Well, Peter had confronted them, and he was wearing like a motorcycle helmet and said that he was looking for somebody. He named a neighbor that they had known, like both the Mr. and Miss Demers had known, and I guess like that made them trust him. So like they ended up giving him a ride. Well, Ted Demers gave him a ride back to his motorcycle, which was someplace away. But shortly after dropping him off or getting him to his bike, Peter had killed Ted Demers with a machete, I believe, which is kind of crazy because he was carrying a machete in his backpack. But it's kind of crazy, just machete killings. But anyway, that's besides the point. So he is still on the loose, and it's also suspected that he killed a school friend of his, Nicholas Easel, and he was 23 years old as well. So it turned out that he actually did get to the ex-girlfriend and kidnapped her, but they found her later on at a rest stop, and she was perfectly fine. She was unharmed. But this is something that, I guess is still active. People are still actively looking for him. The latest tip pinpointed him in Maryland someplace, so if you're on the East Coast, just be careful. If you have any sightings of him, you can look for, you can just Google Peter Manfredonia and get more details about the case. You can get his image and things like that, because a lot of the tips that have been given were from people that have spotted him, people, posting his face online and just contributing to trying to find this person that's on the loose. And at first they were saying he was a serial killer, but it's actually, he's a spree killer is what they identified him as. And I had to look that up because I didn't really, I didn't really like know the difference. But a spree killer is apparently an individual that kills two or more people within like a short period of time. Like there's no cooling off phase. Whereas a serial killer will kill, multiple people, but it'd be like over the course of like there's a cooling down period. So like, like they'll take like a few weeks or a few months or something like that. Whereas spree killing is kind of like, okay, they're just killing one person after another, and it's in different locations for both of those. So it's really interesting. I mean, I love like true crime and things like that. I mean, I am so sad that like people have lost their lives due to this, but I mean, it's always been something that's been interesting for me as far as just just I guess just speaking about these things. And I know there are a lot of other people that have it, and I listen to so many podcasts that speak about true crime and things like that, and it's always been interesting to me. I used to watch the ID channel with my grandmother a lot when I was growing up, and they do all those reenactments of, you know, true crime and like things that have happened, and I've always loved things like that. And I listen to podcasts like My Favorite Murder, Serial, the last podcast on the left, Cults, like just all these different podcasts that kind of speak about true crime and things like that. And as terrible as it is, it's a truth and it's a fact. It's something that like we all have to experience in our lives and somehow. And I think that the kind of like speaking about it and like talking about these things and also just acknowledging these victims of these terrible crimes, I think that that is something that gives them justice in itself. Whereas like we're gaining more knowledge as people about like the things to identify with people that are, either struggling with, you know, mental problems that are that exacerbate like violent behaviors. Like we can be more understanding of that way. I mean, like not necessarily condoning the violence that comes from it, not necessarily even blaming mental illness on that specifically, but we can gain a better understanding by having these conversations. We can gain a better understanding by speaking about these things, and we can also gain some kind of strength and security and knowing that these are things that aren't new to us. Because I think the biggest thing that happens, the biggest thing that is a detriment to us is when something is shocking to us, when something is so new to us and so outrageous and egregious that we have no way of even processing it, and therefore we can't process this. We get stuck. We get frozen in that space, in that mindset, in that place, and I think that it's so helpful to speak about these things. And I mean you don't have to listen to true crime podcasts or go into that. I mean it can be very dark, and it's not something that is for everyone, but it's also just like when things like this happen, it's just really, it blows my mind, just like that people would take the life of someone else. But I mean, like it's also just like something that we have to acknowledge that happens, and how do we work with this? How do we, address these things that are going on? And I mean, these are very real things, and I think it's so important to talk about. And as we speak about, I guess, just people being killed and murdered, I mean, obviously there's the situation that happened with police and the death of George Floyd. And, like there's so many things going around that where it's more or less like, I've seen the video, and honestly, like I wish I hadn't seen the video. And it really blows my mind, like everything that's going on, because it's almost as if I couldn't even take a breath from the Ahmaud Arbery case before this other incident happened. And it's kind of like, can we not for a second just like start really addressing like this that's going on? Because like this is kind of just out of hand, like where it's happening over and over. And this time with George Floyd, it was something that happened with individuals that were meant to protect and serve, individuals that were meant to be the ones that, helped out the public and the people that are actually in danger. And if many of you haven't seen the video, I mean, you're welcome to look at it, and you can also look at the other videos that have surfaced surrounding the issue. But I'm not going to go into details because there are so many things online that speak about the case, or things that are speaking about just the actions of the officers, and it's really just outrageous. But my point here is, as we look at this situation, how it unfolded, there are so many things that were wrong with it, like on so many different levels. And something that like triggers me, the individuals that were filming, the individuals that wanted the police officers to stop what they were doing and like even try to like confront in some kind of way, if they had tried to push the officers with like no lethal weapons whatsoever, just like to save this man's life, that whose neck was being, pushed down and suffocated essentially, if they were to attack any of these officers in any kind of way, like just pushing them open palm, pushing them off of this man, they would have been charged faster than these police officers have been charged. They would have been, I mean, who knows? Like maybe the police officers would have used deadly force, and then everything would have been covered up. Where it's like now it's like, okay, this was a, they would have changed it to be like, okay, this is some kind of violent incident that, like we had, justification for this. So it's like we kind of get stuck at this impasse when we're dealing with individuals that are law enforcement, and how do you combat that? And that's the biggest thing, where it's like we shouldn't have to combat law enforcement. And I don't want this to like make it sound like I am against law enforcement or like hate all law enforcement. I have so many friends. And it kind of blows my mind how many friends that I knew from college that are police officers right now. And it's like, I know the shit that you did in college. I'm surprised that you're a police officer, but I love them, I respect them, and I know that they are good people. But I see these videos and I see these actions, and this is not something that is a one thing incident. Like, this is something that's happened and been perpetuated for decades and decades. And it's so unfortunate that like we are in this place that we are still allowing individuals that have those kind of biases, that have those kind of that kind of hatred towards the people that they're meant to protect and serve, that you can't. I don't know. It blows my mind that we're not addressing these things, and it's not that we're not able to either, because we have. I mean, like, although there's so much that we need to understand in the field of psychology and like in how the brain works and how people move and things like that, we have enough knowledge to know how to show subconscious ideas that people have. Like that's how they have those tests where it's like, like you police officers have that test where it's like you go into the shooting range or something, and like these different things like pop up or slide out. I've only seen it in movies. I don't know if that's like actually a training thing, but it's essentially for them to like gain like perception of like who the enemy is and who's not the enemy. So like a guy with a burglar mask will like pop out, and then like a grandma holding a baby will like pop out, and it's like you're supposed to like, it's supposed to be high speed and like high pace, and you're supposed to like be able to decipher like who's the enemy and who's not. It's training that perception, but also after a certain point, like you're starting to get into like the deeper levels of like the psyche, and there are so many tests that like can be done in the training academies to kind of weed out individuals that have these biases, that are that maybe have racial discrepancies, are discriminatory in certain ways, or will be that crooked cop that does the dirty things that shouldn't be done because it's at the fate of the people that they're trying to protect and serve. So my entire point is that we have the ability and the knowledge to screen individuals for these things, for inherent violence, for inherent biases that they may have. And it's important for us to begin to implement these things, because we are going to continue to have situations like this if we just let anyone kind of go into those positions of power. And it's so unfortunate that we even have to have these conversations, because it's something that should be like just common knowledge. It's like if you're hiring someone to protect and serve a population of people full of different backgrounds, different ages, different religions, different ethnicities and races, you have to have some kind of control over who you're giving that power to. And it's something that's so necessary and something that we need, because this is out of control. And I don't necessarily like to always speak about like my opinions and my thoughts on from a personal matter, but I think this is something that is an issue of humanity, an issue of like what we're doing as people and how we're seeing other people. And this is something that, I mean, like our country, the United States, is facing, but this is something that is also pervasive throughout the world. Maybe not to the level, or maybe at even a higher level, but we just have to start really realizing like this is humanity that we're speaking about. These are other humans that we're speaking about, and we have to take that into consideration as we move into positions of power, as we move into these positions where we are meant to, work with individuals from different places. So I'm going to kind of just close it there. And again, like there are just so many things that are happening in the world right now. And as we go through these things, it's okay to have feelings about it. It's okay to have thoughts about these things. It's okay to feel pain from these things. And that's something that I did want to speak about as we think about solo endeavors, is that I spoke about how this journey, as we go through life in the episode of Solo Endeavors, as we go through this journey of life, it's kind of like a solo endeavor because we're dealing with these things that maybe are similar to what others are dealing with, but we're still doing it for ourselves. Like we're still moving our own body, we're still thinking our own thoughts, and we're still feeling our own feelings, and that's what makes it like a solo endeavor, even if there are other people around. And one of the biggest things with solo endeavors is that our mental health and our mental well-being is a solo endeavor. And although I always speak about support and support from others, and surrounding yourself with those that move you to that place that you want to be, and lift you up, your happiness and your mental health isn't contingent upon them. And something that, as I went through the counseling program that I went through, and as I've worked with clients, the biggest thing is you can't depend on people to make you okay. And you can have people that work with you, people that give you tools to help you in certain situations, but it's up to you to utilize those tools. It's up to you to get yourself to that place, and utilize that support in a way that like is meaningful, in the way that like aids you in the way that you feel that you need to be aided. And that's the biggest thing, is that support from others it's amazing, it's great, and something that I told my clients, like they would thank me for speaking with them or like helping them work through something that they're dealing with. But I would tell them, I'm like, I I'm thankful that you're appreciative of this, but you did the work. The only thing that I'm there for is to say some words, like provide certain questions or provoke certain thoughts within you to manifest and bring about the change that you wish to see for yourself. And that's all it is. But the work is for you. Like we can give you all the tools you want, but if you're not taking out your toolbox and using it, then that's kind of where that downfall comes in. And the biggest problem is that it's a slippery slope when we start to gain that support from others, and we love that support, and it's amazing to get that support from others. But something to remember is that like like that support is one thing, but the people aren't necessarily responsible for that support. It's what you're taking in from those people. And it can be a slippery slope because, like we start trusting in people and we start relying on people and leaning on people because they've been the supportive person, the supportive goal. They've been the support in some kind of way. And the biggest part of that is that when we start leaning on people for that support, we can just start leaning on people in general. And when we start leaning on people in general, we start leaning on the wrong people. We start investing in the wrong people. We start moving towards the wrong people. And those are the people that are tearing us down rather than lifting us up. They're the ones that are not giving us that support. And it's it's okay if we know the difference between like, okay, this person isn't good for me, so I'm going to separate myself from them. But so many times we get caught up in leaning on other people that we start relying on other people to make us feel good in that way. And again, like this is a solo venture. What you work through in your own mind, it's something that like you have to do for yourself, And again, like you can take the support, you can take the love, you can take like the kindness from other people. And that's something to just really keep in mind as you look at people who are supporting you and those that aren't supporting you. Like don't necessarily look at the people themselves as like I need to lean on people in order to have the support that I need. I need to lean on people in order to get the things that I need for myself. Instead of looking at it in that way, because again, we fall into that point of relying on the wrong people and leaning on the wrong people. We can take that kindness, that love, that those comments that people give us, take that and hold it within yourself and say, yes, this is who I am. And then when those confrontational people come into our lives, the people that are trying to tear us down, we think about those tools that the other people gave us, and we say, you know what, no, like I'm not this, I'm not that, I am strong, I am kind, I am loving, I am, and move yourself to a state where now you're deciphering not only just like the people that are supporting you and the people that you want to be around, but also the things that are going into your own mind about how you are and who you want to be. Because that's what it comes down to. It's like even compliments can be so difficult to accept because we don't see it in ourselves. That's not a tool that we're actively pulling out of that toolbox to say like, yes, this is something that's building my confidence. This is something that's building me up. We leave it in that toolbox, and it's very difficult for us to acknowledge it and actually utilize it. We can like see that it's in there because when someone reminds us, yeah, I've heard that before, but we don't really take it to heart. So as we kind of think about this idea of moving forward in our lives and endeavoring in different ventures and taking those risks by going out on a limb in different ways, and we have to realize that it is a journey that you have to work on for yourself, and you have to want it. You have to want that change. You have to want that self understanding and that self reliance and that strength that moves within you. You have to move towards that. You have to want that, and you have to know that you have it, because otherwise we'll constantly be tugged and pulled by different people always, and it's not going to feel the greatest, because at one moment we're going to be told all the things that we want to hear, and then the next moment we're told all the things that we don't want to hear, and those things will stick with us longer. Those things will impede our psyche longer. Those things will detriment our mental health longer than those positive things. So we have to reinforce that within ourselves, because the world outside of us, they're just going to throw things at us. We have to do this for ourselves. We have to move for ourselves and work on these things for ourselves. And it doesn't mean that like you have to shun everyone away or not accept the support and love that people give you. Accept and accept all of it, and appreciate all of it and love all of it, but utilize all of it within yourself for those times when you're in another situation, when you don't have that, when you have to rely on what you know of yourself and the strength that you have within yourself, and that's what moves us, and like that's what helps us to grow and understand ourselves more and really understand the world around us more. And I guess as I kind of like think about solo endeavors and traveling, and there are so many things with traveling that we'll kind of speak about in the episode, but there's so much that's learned, like whether it's bettering in our mental health, or just a change in the way that we perceive the world around us, which ultimately goes into like the way that we perceive ourselves in the world. So as we think about solo endeavors and this idea of traveling, it's gonna be clear that a lot of these things overlap, a lot of these themes overlap, and I think that all of these things overlap because like they're part of our lives. Like everything under the sun, literally everything under the sun that we come into contact with, that we interact with, it's part of us, and it moves us in different ways. So we have to be aware of what are these things that are moving us, what are these things that are changing us, and is this the change that I want for myself? Is this the change that I need for myself? And we have to take that and know that like this is something that we have to decide for ourselves, and we can't let anyone else decide that. We can't let anyone choose our destiny for us. We can't let anyone choose the path that we want to go on. We have to do it for ourselves, and that includes when we're working to better ourselves, working to heal ourselves, working to be ourselves. And that's basically that. So I'm not really sure if any of this was too coherent, but I guess there's just like so many things that are going on. Again, like this has been like the craziest, weirdest week where, I've done a lot of self-reflection, a lot of reflection on a lot of things, and I've come to a place where I think I don't even know if I can say happier, but I'm more aware, which I guess like brings me happiness, but like not in like a smiling type of happiness, but like in a, oh shit, like this is an awareness that I think I always needed in order to be okay. And I think as we grow to understand ourselves more, as we grow to kind of realize more about like these experiences that we're having, it's like, like you're getting a more full piece of the puzzle, like a more full image of like what's going on, and I think it's like it's something that's very refreshing. It's something that's like that feels really good, and I think that we can all kind of experience this, but we just don't recognize it always. Like the best thing that I can say to do if you want to kind of like think about that or something like that is, we have some experiences where maybe like someone says some shit that's like just like really, like normally it would like piss you off or something, but you're like, wow, like I don't even care, and you start realizing within yourself that you're responding differently, that you're acting differently, that you're moving differently than you would have before in that same situation. And I think that's like the best teller of our growth and our understanding and our movement to be more true to who we are, is when we start realizing, like, fuck all the bullshit. Like, I'm going to move myself in the way that's best for me. I'm going to surround myself with the people that's best for me. And I'm going to fill my own mind, fill my own life with the things that I want for myself. And I know that that's going to come with many roadblocks and many experiences, because as I've gained clarity, as I've gone through this self reflection, I've also realized that there is a lot more pain, that is inevitable for our lives. And it's more or less like, how am I going to take it? Like, knowing that there are going to be challenges that are going to come ahead of me, that are going to be in front of me. How do I want to proceed? Do I want to proceed with fear? Do I want to get frozen in this time because I'm so worried about that sadness, or like that pain that I may experience down the line? Or am I going to recognize it and recognize the strength that I have within me that will get me through that time? The things that I have within me in my toolbox that are going to help me to grow and learn and become even more understanding of who I am in the world around me through these experiences, because those are the experiences that move us. Those are the experiences that help us to grow and again, to understand the things that we're having in our lives, the things that we experience in our lives. So that is going to be the end of this episode of Solo Endeavors. And again, I mean, I hope that this was not something that was too crazy. Look out for the next episode for traveling. That's going to be next week. And I'm thinking I'm going to have a guest on the show. So look out for that. And if you have any ideas or thoughts or topics that you'd like to share, send them to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can join the Instagram page at everything.sunpodcast. You can join the Twitter page at everysunpodcast, or you can follow the Facebook group at Everything Under the Sun with Ty. And yeah, I hope you all stay safe. Again, like all of you back east, this guy's still on the loose. Peter Manfredonia, fake name. And no, that's his real name. Peter Manfredonia is his real name. And, keep a lookout, stay safe, and love those around you, because there are so many people dying every single day. And we don't know when it's going to happen for anyone. So love those around you, say hello to someone that you haven't spoken to in a while, but you care about. And yeah, love you all. I'll see you next time.